Okay, so step by step, this dashboard is really coming to life now. And truth be told, we could very well send this back to 𝗬𝗎's salary, and she would be very pleased. But I do have a couple more adjustments that we could make to make it even more useful. So now that we're highlighting the bar for the selected industry here, it really makes me want to be able to move it up and down between the industries. But the drop-down list doesn't let me do this that easily because the industries are in alphabetical order. So if I wanted to go from finance down to business services, I'd actually have to move up, select business services, and then we'd be good to go. Now, one thing I could do is simply sort the industries in this drop-down list in this order, which would help, but what I really want is to add toggle arrows to the side here so that I can just simply click up and down and move the selection across my bar chart. And we can do that using form controls. Now, in order to access the form controls, you do need to have the Developer tab enabled. And to do that, you need to go to File, Options, and in the Customize Ribbon menu, just make sure that you have this Developer option checked, press OK, and you should have this Developer tab up here if you didn't have it already. Now, within this tab, we're going to go to the Insert menu here, and we're going to want to use the regular form controls. And in this case, we do want a spin button with the up and down arrows, so let's select that. Let's add it right here. And what we can do to adjust the height here is move this, and while I'm doing this, hold the Alt key, and this is essentially going to snap the shape into the grid so that it's exactly this tall and this tall as well. So now I can just hold Shift, move it to the left, and align it perfectly with my industry selector here. Now, you'll notice that right now we can click on these arrows, but nothing is really happening. So to start setting this up, I'm going to right click and go to Format Control. And I'm going to ignore the current minimum and maximum values for now, and I'm just going to link this form control to a cell in my worksheet. So click on this, let's link it to our first cell here, press OK, and you'll notice that we get a value of 2, and if we press up, it moves up, if we press down, it moves down, and it does stop at 0 because right now, again if we go back, we have a minimum value of 0 set. So let's close out of this. And so far, all this spin button is doing is again making a number go up and down. So what we need to do is use this number inside of a formula to return the selected industry. And there are actually a number of ways to do this, but the easiest is probably with the index function. So to show you how the index function works, I'm going to go to the Data Prep tab and start writing index, open parentheses, and what this function does is store an array in memory. In this case, let's select our array of industries, and then it retrieves a value from within that array at the intersection of a given row or column. Now, since this array only contains rows, so it's one column wide, then all we need is to tell the index function which row to return. So if we give it a row number of 3, close out our function and press enter, you'll see that we get a value of business services because this is the industry in the third row of our array. If we change this value to a 1, we get information, and if we wanted to return leisure and hospitality, it looks like we've got 10 total rows, so we can change this 1 to a 10, and the index function returns leisure and hospitality. So now that we know this, now that we know that we need to feed the index function a 1 to return information and a 10 to return leisure and hospitality, which are the first and last industries, then we need to set a minimum value of 1 and a maximum value of 10 for our spin button. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, right click, format control, set the minimum value to a 1 and the maximum value to a 10. Press OK. You'll see that this goes from 10 down to 1 and it stops there. So now we can replace this data validation list. Let's go to data, data validation, and clear, and replace it with an index function that is going to retrieve the selected industry based on this number. So let's write index. The array is going to be this list of industries, and I'm using this list because it's in the same order as our bar chart. And the row that we want to return is the value from our spin button. Close this out, press enter, and you'll see that we're getting information. And if we click down, it looks like this isn't really working. And if we click up, it looks like our spin button and our index function are working in reverse here. Let me hide this. So let's think about why this is. If we return to the first row here, we'll see that the index function in this cell is returning the value in the first row of our array whenever the spin button is at its lowest value. But what we want is for the index function to return the value in the first row whenever the spin button is at its highest value. So whenever this hits its max, we want our selection to stop at the top here, which means that we need to apply some sort of operation that turns this 10 into a 1, because this is the first row. And as we go down, we want to turn this 9 into a 2 so that it returns the second row. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about what operation we can apply to make those transformations. Alright, so what we can actually do is subtract the value from our spin button to 11, and we'll get exactly what we need. So 11 minus 9 is going to get us 2, which is the second row. 11 minus 8 is going to get us 3, which is the third row. And if we go all the way down, 11 minus 1 is going to get us 10, which is the 10th row. So let's add that to our formula. We want to return the row number, which is equal to 11 minus this value right here. Press enter, and let's test this out. It looks like now this is working perfectly. In fact, it's working so well that I kind of want to replace this drop-down list as well now. And we could use another spin button, but with only 2 options, it doesn't really seem that necessary. What we can do instead is display both options and then just let the user select one or the other. And we can use a form control for that. So I'm going to show my ribbon again. Go back to our developer tab, insert, and what we want for those selections is an option button. So let's add one now. The first one can be for average wage, and let's add another one for employees per 1,000. So as I click out, you'll see that it lets me select either one or the other. And if we right click and go to format control, you'll see that it also lets us link this to a cell. So let's link it to cell A2 in this case. Press OK. And I'm going to left align these just so we can see them properly. So let's do that. And as I click between these, you'll notice that we're getting either a value of 1 or a value of 2, which we can work with. So if we go back to the data prep tab, right now this metric selector is equal to the drop down in our dashboard right here. But what we can do is replace this with an if function. So let's write if So if this cell right here is equal to 1, then we want to return average wage. So comma, and in my value of true, we want to return average wage. Otherwise, we want to return employees per 1,000 capita. Close our if function, press enter. We're getting average wages right now. And if I select my employees per 1,000, not only does my map change, but it's because this is now a 2, so this is now employees per 1,000 capita. So now that this is working, we can hide these values and press Ctrl+1 to open the Format Cells dialog box and apply custom number format to make these invisible. So 3 semicolons, press OK, and this all still works. But now the users just can't see the values there. And we don't need this drop down either. In fact, it's not really doing anything. So I'm just going to copy a cell above it and paste it on there to replace it. And now let's just right click on these and move them over here. Let's do the same for this. And what we can do is just copy some titles here, Control-Shift, and call this average wages. I'll left align this and just place it on top of my spin button here. Again, Control-Shift. This is employees per 1,000. Let's make this bigger and drag all of these over here. And now what we can do is select all of these. And now we can go to Shape Format and just align them down the middle. And we can move them up a bit. And there we go. And now that these are all text boxes, we can actually take our color strategy to the next level and highlight the keywords here. So wage is blue, employees is orange, 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 blue, blue. Now let's go back to full screen mode. And now we're talking. Now it's way easier and more intuitive to explore this dashboard.